Tonight's big stories. After nearly 2 months in captivity, Filipino Jimmy Pacheco is freed by Hamas militants along with 23 other hostages.
A surge in respiratory illnesses across China is ringing alarm bells once more. Is this really a cause for concern? We'll be speaking with infectious disease expert Dr. Ronjean Sonante later on in the show.
And 'tis the season indeed. Scammers are also working overtime to get their hands on our hard-earned bonuses. We'll be talking about what to watch out for with Scam Watch Pilipinas' Art Samaniego.
Welcome back. Welcome to the show. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Welcome
and
back.
Welcome back indeed.
Welcome back to me,
you.
not welcome back to you. Sorry. Kicking off the show on a good note tonight, OFW Gilinor Jimmy Pacheco has been released by Hamas militants after nearly 2 months in captivity.
Philippine officials are now working on his immediate repatriation just in time for Christmas.
His family is already in Manila, ready to welcome Jimmy back after his ordeal in Gaza. Radial Pawid with the big story.
With cheers and claps, OFW Gilinor Jimmy Pacheco got discharged from hospital in Israel, where he received medical assessment after being held hostage and released by the militant group Hamas. Philippine officials are now working on his immediate repatriation. Jimmy is now eager to return home to his family, which for him is an early Christmas present after going through such an ordeal in Gaza. He has 3 children, all of whom are still in elementary.
Lagi ko pong pinagdarasal na magkita pa kami. Kasi yung mga ano na ganyan po kami lalaki nung iniwan po kami ng tatay namin. Kaya siguro hindi inano yun ng Diyos na gagawin ko sa mga anak ko na ganyan kakaliit na ilelep ko sila.
While government officials work on his return to the Philippines, Jimmy is currently staying with his late employer's children.
It's like our family now. Over the last 4 years that he's with us, we're very happy. We're waiting for Jimmy in the hospital.
The Pacheco family won't have to wait long. The Department of Foreign Affairs says Jimmy could be back in the country before Christmas.
About a week before Christmas, so let's give it about December 15 to 18. That yun ang kanyang mga target dates.
Once back in the Philippines, Jimmy says he has no plans of going back abroad.
Ang trabaho ko noon driver ng kiskisan, yung rice mill. Magkaroon ng sariling ganon, masaya na ako.
Tulungan natin siya. Basta what we can promise, yung kanyang bubuing kiskisan. Kiskisan ng bigas yan eh. Yun ang tawag nila dyan. So, we'll work on it.
The Philippine government is also working with Israeli counterparts to possibly provide Jimmy with lifetime financial support.
Meron yan kasi former a terrorist victim yan, so he will get some social security benefits. Parang pension yan eh, parang monthly pension.
For now, the Philippine Embassy officials continue to monitor Jimmy's condition as he recovers from hearing issues after being held captive by Hamas. His family, meanwhile, is in Manila under the custody of OWA awaiting his return. For News 5, Rainiel Pawid, we are One News.
There's also something to celebrate for the families of the other hostages released by Hamas. Over the span of the 4-day ceasefire, dozens of Israeli and foreign nationals have been released from captivity. It's been quite the reunion for many families, what with their loved ones having been held hostage since October 7. Now, among the freed hostages was 4-year-old American Israeli Abigail, who sadly lost her parents to the Hamas attack. Several Thai nationals were also among the released hostages. So far, there have been around 58 hostages released by Hamas in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Both Hamas and Israel said they're open to extending the truce to allow the safe exchange of prisoners and hostages. Israel, however, wants 10 additional hostages released per day. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also said they will resume operations in Gaza once the ceasefire ends.
Here's also the framework that says it is possible to free every additional day 10 more hostages. This is welcome. In the same breath, I also said to the president that at the end of the outline, we will return with full force to achieve our goals. The elimination of Hamas, ensuring that Gaza does return to what it was, and of course, the release of all our hostages.
And the Philippine government, though, is also still trying to locate a missing Filipina named Noralyn Babadilla. Nora's family believes that she was also taken hostage by Hamas.
Hindi naman po ma-identify doon po sa mga nakitang mga dead bodies. Kaya alam po namin, siya po ay isa sa captives doon ng mga Hamas. At isa pa po ay may nag-confirm po sa pinsan po doon sa kapatid na si Exo na hostage nga daw po siya. Kaya malakas po ang loob namin at umaasa po kami nandoon siya.
The DFA, though, is still reaching out to Israel and Qatar about any information on Noralyn. The agency said Jimmy Pacheco was not able to explicitly confirm whether there are other Pinoys that were taken hostage with him.
Wala siyang alam na ibang hostage. Kasi iba-iba naman ng mga hostages. Si Miss Noralyn, tira po saan siya, hindi natin siya matagpuan. Maaring isa sa mga namatay, pero kung isa siya sa mga hostages, hinihingi natin ng confirmation at para mapalaya na rin.
It is good to point out that today is the final day of that truce. And there are talks on extensions of that. But this is a 3-1 deal, meaning 58 hostages were released by Palestine, and Israel released more than 150 Palestinian prisoners of war.
So at least there's some
I think the
cause
ratios
for
may be
optimism on the Palestinian side as
But
well.
there are questions on whether there will be real solutions to the Palestine-Israel conflict that will bring an end to this war. None of that talk yet, but
And
this
we
is
just heard
definitely
Netanyahu,
progress.
right? He said operations in Gaza will continue after the ceasefire. So I guess we'll find out tomorrow. However, we are still on hostage watch. We are, of course, rejoicing over Jimmy Pacheco finally being released. We are still worried about Noralyn Babadilla. But over in Yemen, there's still about 19 Filipinos. Last week, while you were gone, Reg, the Galaxy leader, this vessel, was
Taken hostage
by Yehudi rebels, and there are 17 crew members. The update there is that they were able to get in touch with their families somehow, even though they're still hostages, which means that they're okay. But just over the weekend, another 2 Filipinos
Grabe yung
were taken hostage.
taking in
Grabe,
videos.
diba?
Yeah.
Oo, so may
It's
dalawa
like-
na namang bagong Filipino seafarers, this time aboard the MV Central Park, a British-owned ship, taken hostage again. I guess
If you didn't know any better, you'd say that that video was part of a game, right?
Right.
With the
Or a movie.
chopper coming into
Kasi meron silang mga body cams
oh,
na
everything.
parang medyo professional yung pagkaka-film
but it actually
nito.
happened in real life.
And what drives me nuts about this whole thing is this is also in relation to what's going on between Israel and Gaza. As the Houthi rebels said, this is in retaliation for that.
It's good that media reports are now saying that crew members are safe. Agence France Presse also reported that armed assailants seized MV Central Park, rather. That's the tanker that we were just talking about. It's a United Kingdom-based Israel-linked company in the Gulf of Aden on Sunday.
And speaking of security in our seas, the maritime cooperative activity of the AFP and Australian Defence Force in the West Philippine Sea officially concluded earlier today. The 3-day MCA was said to be successful despite the shadowing of Chinese vessels and aircraft. Brian Castillo has the details.
What you're seeing now is a video from the Super Tucano light attack aircraft of the AFP Western Command while patrolling the West Philippine Sea last Sunday. Although not very clear, due to their distance, the 2 seemingly flying birds in the sky are actually fighter jets from China. According to AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Browner Jr., Chinese fighter jets circled the Super Tucano for 15 minutes during the maritime cooperative activity or joint patrol of the Philippines and Australia in the West Philippine Sea. Prior to that, a Chinese warship also approached the Philippine Navy vessels BRP Gregorio del Pilar and BRP Davao del Sur while patrolling with HMAS Toowoomba of the Royal Australian Navy.
What we are doing are legitimate operations because we have all the right to patrol our territorial seas and our exclusive economic zone. And that is exactly what we are doing. But this time, we are doing it with our allies and our partners. No?
China has repeatedly stated that everything they do in the South China Sea is in accordance with their claimed rights to the territories they assert. And while there are some advocating for a dialogue with China to resolve the issues in the West Philippine Sea, Defense Secretary Teodoro is not in favor of it at the moment. He believes that engaging in negotiation is pointless if China continues to worsen the situation.
Formal bilateral discussion should only be held when it is proven that they are sincere. But the President himself has said their illegal activities continue unabated. So to enter into bilateral negotiations and not talks, in that context, will be just, to me, playing into their playbook.
Meanwhile, for Australia, international law cannot be set aside in any discussion.
Maritime claims, whether in the South China Sea or elsewhere, must be consistent with UNCLOS. And so it remains as important as ever that the 2016 South China Sea Arbitral Tribunal Award is respected and adhered to by the parties involved as final and binding.
The maritime cooperative activity between the Philippines and Australia has since concluded, but the DND is already expecting more upcoming joint patrols. Among the preparations is the proposed collective sailing of the Philippines, America, Japan, and Australia in the West Philippine Sea. For News 5, Brian Castillo, We Are One News.
Moving on to politics. Last week, President Marcos said the government is studying the country's possible return to the International Criminal Court. Now, Vice President Sara Duterte has finally spoken up about it, and this is what she had to say.
We all should respect the position of the President being the chief architect of foreign policy. So, yun po lahat na dapat na posisyon nating lahat.
The Vice President said, though, that she'll continue to reach out to the Justice Department to ask about their official position on the matter. She's also asking the DOJ about possible legal action against proposals to allow the ICC to investigate the war on drugs by her father, former President Rodrigo Duterte. When pressed about Marcos's supposed change of tune over the ICC probe, VP Sara didn't really have an answer.
Merong sudden change po dun sa position ng government?
I cannot speak for the President. You need to ask the President on this matter.
This was, of course, the Vice President being ambushed on the sidelines of the 31st National Children's Month at the Manila Hotel. Recall that last year, iba yung sinabi ni President Marcos. Sabi niya, that the Philippines has no intention of rejoining the ICC.
Yes, he was very categorical last year.
Yeah.
Ngayon, ano sinabi niya?
And that's where the questions are coming from. Just to set the context for our viewers, baka naman they're thinking, why do you keep asking about this? And the context is that there was a very firm stance last year. They were unequivocal about it that we will not cooperate with the ICC. And now it's
only the last few months that things are started. Kumbaga nagbago nga yung ihip ng hangin. Now it's they're studying, and now the Justice Secretary was also very adamant that no way we're rejoining the ICC. Has said, well, we are studying it, but we also have to wait for the House.
Well, the President said if there are problems, it's clear naman that the ICC has no jurisdiction currently. But the fundamental basis for this must be studied, and we should work on that. And if we are able to work on that, then that changes the conversation entirely.
It does change the conversation. Vice President Sara also refused to comment because obviously wherever she goes, she gets ambushed by these reporters asking these questions, trying to get some clarity out of this whole issue, right? And she said that she didn't want to comment on the fact that former allies in the lower house seem to be behind
changing their tune, or
behind
actually
this
behind
proposal.
this change in tune or change in
Yes.
viewpoint. But of course, we always talk to former Duterte spokesman Harry Roque, and he released a statement today, and that goes, whether or not the Philippines rejoins the International Criminal Court, lawyer Harry Roque said that the court's absence of judicial cognizance over the drug war case precludes it from investigating former President Rodrigo Duterte and Vice President Sara Duterte. Roque likewise cautioned President Marcos Jr. against political advisors using the ICC issue to foment division between the Marcos government and the family of the Dutertes. Okay, here's the quote. Regardless of our membership status, the court cannot invoke jurisdiction since it was only in 2022 that the former prosecutor was allowed to proceed with a preliminary investigation. It was 2 years after the Philippines had officially left the ICC. And another Duterte ally, Senator Bato de la Rosa, told ANC that rejoining the ICC needs the Senate's approval daw.
Yun ang proseso. According to the ABS-CBN article, after the president's ratification, it has to be concurred by the Senate by a 2/3 vote. So that is the process of rejoining the ICC. Back to zero, back to square one. Sabi nga ni Senator Bato de la Rosa, sabi niya, failure to follow that process would be unconstitutional. When asked if the Senate would concur with the return to the ICC, he replied, I don't think so. He adds that if we do rejoin, it will be back to zero, back to square one.
But again, of course, the Senate is a collegial body, so it'll come down to
Votes.
the majority. Just to pick up on something in Harry Roque's statement, he goes, absence of judicial cognizance. And we're not lawyers, so we don't know exactly what it means, but I would hazard a guess to say that it's to do with jurisdiction, right? His insistence that they do not have jurisdiction because we left the court in 2019. It's true that former President Duterte declared that we were leaving the ICC in March 2018, and then it officially took effect a year later, which is March 2019.
But the Supreme Court has already ruled on that one, Reg. We, of course, have discussed it a bunch of times here on the show. But just to remind everyone, the SC has ruled that they will have jurisdiction for everything until our exit in March of 2019.
Yeah.
To March 2019, that's right. So everything before March 2019, which is the day we officially left ICC, is fair game.
It does need the cooperation of our government, though, to be able to.
And that's why
enforce.
That's still almost
reporting on
3
this.
years, or at least 2.5 years, because President Duterte took office on June 30th of 2016. So that's still quite some time, a couple of years.
Well, after the break, let's move on to other shores. The WHO is looking into what it calls pneumonia clusters in China, which has sparked fears of another pandemic. Should we be worried? We'll be speaking with infectious disease expert Dr. Ronjean Solante. When the big story returns, stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
China's health ministry is now urging local authorities to add more fever clinics amid a surge in respiratory illnesses. The surge comes as China enters its first full winter since relaxing COVID-19 restrictions fully. China's National Health Commission said the surge is linked to the simultaneous circulation of several kinds of pathogens, most prominently influenza. The spike became a global issue last week when the World Health Organization asked China for more information, citing clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children. Here in the Philippines, the health department says cases of flu-like illnesses have started to drop From October 15 to 28, the DOH logged more than 10,000 cases. That's about 20% lower than previous weeks. But the DOH also warned that flu-like illnesses could shoot up again in January next year because of the rainy and cold weather. As to the rise of respiratory illnesses in China, the DOH is still on monitoring mode. For now, experts are urging authorities and school officials to keep a close eye on children. Just how concerned should we be about the surge in respiratory illnesses in China? Let's bring in infectious disease expert Dr. Ronjin Solante for some answers. Good evening, Dr. Ronjin. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Hi, good evening.
As a parent of two, I have to tell you, this has been weighing on my mind, especially since I just came from illness. I caught COVID last week. Thankfully, no one else in my household caught it. But anecdotally, I have to say I have seen quite a number of my children's friends catch all sorts of respiratory illnesses. So when you started looking into reports of respiratory illnesses in China, what did you make of it?
Well, Regina, because of our experience with COVID in the past, we always look at any country that will report an increase in the number of cases of respiratory illness is something that we need to monitor. And especially China, where the COVID-19, where the first clusters of mysterious pneumonia was documented in 2019. But we have to look into another context here because prior to the pandemic, 2017, 2018, and 2019, if you look at the WHO, we call it the flu death surveillance. There are already countries reporting increase in the cases of influenza-like illness during this month, starting September, October, November, and even early January. And in fact, the Philippines has already experienced those types of peaks of influenza-like illness. And this year, we also have like that into last September. And this is a common occurrence based on that peak by the WHO on a yearly manner, particularly those countries that are in Asia, some are in Europe. And this is expected at this point of this month in both countries.
All right. Of course, Dr. Solante, we have become super hyper vigilant since COVID. Now, authorities in China are saying that the respiratory illnesses that are circulating there is just, a confluence of events. It's being attributed to the simultaneous circulation of different pathogens, different viruses. Of course, with influenza being prominent. But when you hear pneumonia, you kind of go on high alert because pneumonia can be deadly. Does influenza usually lead to pneumonia or can it lead to pneumonia?
Yeah, that's most of the time, based on our experience. We also always thought that flu can only cause an upper respiratory tract infection like a cough or a fever. But if you look at the data, especially the vulnerable population, around 30 to 40% of those having an influenza-like illness or a flu infection will really go into a lower pneumonia or what we call a pneumonia-like symptoms in the form of severe pneumonia in some cases. And in fact, there is what we call in the global data by the WHO, influenza every year, the death due to complications related with influenza is like 650,000 deaths, and that's quite high, every year. And that's the reason why that when we promote vaccination, we call it the flu vaccination, we always prioritize those children and those who are 6 years old and above, and those who are immunocompromised and with comorbidities.
What about the pneumonia vaccine? Would that help? At the start of COVID, some doctors were also prescribing to get the pneumonia vaccine. I just found out then that there were two kinds. So which kind do we get? And apparently, there's also different strains of pneumonia, so to speak. So do you advise?
Yes. So we have the pneumococcal vaccine that is also something that we want to protect our vulnerable population. But in terms of the number of cases, I think we need to prioritize really the flu vaccine. And the problem here is that not a lot of people know that they need to get the vaccine or they have to have the vaccination. because the program for influenza vaccine is not really free for all of the population, except for the what we call the senior citizens that are in the indigent population. Like this year, the Department of Health, I think, procured 5 million doses of that, but it's only for the senior citizen. But for the rest of the population, the awareness in terms of getting the vaccine is really low. And I think we need to do something about that, because I'll tell you, for the past several years now, influenza is really one of the most common cause of respiratory tract infection, and it can really kill, and it can also cause a lot of complications, just like what we have experienced with COVID-19.
Going back to the pneumonia cases in China, are you saying that this is just seasonal and we have nothing to worry about? Ano lang yun? Kumbaga, normal...
Malamig na rin kasi.
Oo, normal passage of what happens every year. And dito naman po sa Pilipinas, kamusta po yung cases po natin? What is our current state of health?
Yeah, to answer the first question, Gretchen, yes, I would say that we should not panic, as long as we should just be vigilant of what's happening in other countries. China made a statement through the WHO that most of their cases are influenza. Some of them have mycoplasma pneumonia. These are several of these respiratory viral illnesses that usually can co-circulate with COVID. In our setting in the Philippines, we have a peak of this influenza-like illness in September, but the Department of Health, through the surveillance, the Epidemiology Bureau, reported a downtrend in the cases of influenza-like illness. But again, we should still be vigilant, because there's still the holiday coming in, and January is coming in. We're in last 2 years ago, we experienced a lot of admission in the hospital prior to COVID because of influenza-like illness, and this can really trigger also increase in hospitalization, just like COVID.
Right, Doc, you talked about vaccinations, and we all know an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Apart from the vaccination, which does not cover all strains available that's going around the world, is there anything we can do? Vitamin C, rest, water, yun na lang ba ang pwedeng gawin?
Yes, obviously, you have to keep yourself healthy. You have to eat the right food. You have to have a right amount or right number of hours of sleep. But the problem now is that a lot of us are really working, because for the coming holidays, people are really going to the malls, preparing for the holidays. So it's a convergence of several factors why that there will be increase in the cases, even if we're so careful. And I think one of the triggers here is that we're not anymore wearing our face mask. Last year, or for the past 2 to 3 years, we've been wearing our face mask, but now we let our guard down, and that would be very difficult, especially for the vulnerable population.
Doc, kamusta naman po yung COVID numbers natin? Kasi sabi nga ni Regina, she got the COVID virus last week. How are the numbers doing? And should we, be ready for another round of vaccinations, or is that totally out of the picture? Na ano bang natin? Pagdating sa vaccination, what are our policies now?
I know, because I tested. I suspect a lot of people aren't testing. But go ahead, Doc.
Kaya ngayon nga rin
No, my tita also got COVID right before you. Kaya parang ako rin.
Kaya nga, we don't know if it's going around. Kamusta yung numbers natin?
Yeah, Gretchen, that's the problem, because we don't have anymore the true numbers of cases of COVID, because nobody wants to test themselves, no? And if you look at the Department of Health monitoring, they're only reporting it like once a week or longer than that, no? Because talagang wala ng mga data na pumapasok sa mga hospitals, sa mga clinic to give us an accurate number of those who had COVID. But what is very important now, ang pinaka-importante at napakagandang balita, the hospitalization rate and death due to COVID, talagang hindi na natin nakikita yung mga 2 or 3 years ago na because of COVID na hospital. No? Now, in relation to your question sa vaccination, I don't think the government will procure the new formulation of what we call the monovalent XBB variant formulation of the vaccine. But in other countries, ito na yung pinamimigay nila but only for those high-risk populations. So ito yung mga matatanda, 60 years old and above, at saka yung mga immunocompromised. But for the general population, it's optional. Kung meron kang pera, kasi binabayaran na rin to, pwede ka, pero kung walang magagawa. Kasi it's something that an out-of-pocket expense for COVID-19 vaccine.
So in short,
Manageable na.
Yung natatanong ko, Doc, so in short, yung COVID, para na rin siyang flu. Kasi medyo malala rin yung mga kaso ng flu no, sa ibang tao. Parang ganun din, they're out for a week, minsan more pa. After 1 week, may konting plema pa rin. Can we say now that medyo endemic na nga itong COVID-19 at this point?
Yes, sure. No, and I'll give you a data. No, last September, when we had a peak of influenza-like illness, and then yung natitest ng Department of Health na nagmanifest ng lagnat, ubo, at saka masakit na katawan, I think 1/3 of those are COVID, and then 1/3 is influenza. The rest are the other respiratory viral infections. So, doon pa lang sa data, nakikita na natin, parang ordinary na lang ito ng mga respiratory viral infections that can be seasonal, no? Yun yung nakikita natin ngayon.
Halo-halo na.
Oo. So yun na.
Kailangan pa rin mag-quarantine.
Ay, wala na. Hindi na tayo.
have
Ang dami nang
to
lumalabas
just-
ngayon. May sipon, may ubo.
Mask na lang.
Just out of a social obligation.
That's true,
right? But
that's
just lastly, very quickly, Doc, any recommendations for school officials in terms of keeping children safe at this time? Is it just the usual health protocols, masking, hand washing? Is there anything else they can do?
Yeah, that really worked, no, Regina, no? But I think the school should also check on the vaccination of these children, no? Kasi indicated din naman ang mga bakuna sa mga bata, no? And we see that a lot of these children are not yet vaccinated with influenza. So I think that the Department of Education should also look into the vaccination coverage among school children with both pneumonia and that of influenza vaccine.
Kasi, Doc, really quick lang, no? Just to clarify, hindi kasi required yung influenza vaccine, right? And like you said, you have to pay for it out of pocket. So, you're suggesting na gawin na lang sana siyang part ng program. Kasi ang bilis talaga kumalat sa mga bata, eh.
Yes, actually, Sean, no, kasama yan sa sa yung tinatawag natin na routine immunization sa mga bata. But you know what? Our routine immunization sa mga bata are only for those who are indigent population, no? Yung hindi talaga maka-afford. But for those who can afford, that's also part of the recommendation, kaya lang out of pocket. So ang panawagan ko dito, we have to create that awareness sa school, sa mga parents na we need to give the flu vaccine to your children kasi malaking bagay yan na they can be protected. At the same time, when they will be carrying the virus, hindi na mahawaan yung mga lola nila na can also develop severe influenza.
That's some really sound advice. We're going to have to leave that there. Thank you so much for your insights tonight. Infectious disease expert, Dr. Ronchin Solante.
Thank you.
We're going to pause for a quick break. Right after that, the holidays gets all of us in a big spending mood, and scammers are very much aware of that. We'll be talking about keeping your money safe this holiday season with Scam Watch Pilipinas' Art Samaniego. Keep it here.
back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
December is just a few days away, and I'm sure many of our viewers have already received or are already starting to receive their 13th month pays or Christmas bonuses. Pero bago tayo gumastos, keep in mind muna that scammers and fraudsters are working extra hard this holiday season. To talk to us about the common scams, the common moduses to watch out for this holiday season, we have with us on the show Art Samaniego, tech enthusiast and co-lead convener of Scam Watch Pilipinas. Hi.
Good evening.
Art, totoo bang talagang hinahabol nila mga bonuses natin? At talaga bang lumalagamat? Parang lagi naman may fraud at may scam.
Oo, pero sa observation ng CICC, Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, every December, tumataas yung kaso ng online scam. And merong ginawang pag-aaral ang Global Anti-Scam Alliance na nagsasabi na Philippines is the top place kung saan laganap yung online scamming.
Why are we so vulnerable?
Well, according to the study, we easily believe the scammers, and we get pressured by the scammers when the scammers will say, ibibigay namin sa iba tong discount mo kung hindi ka magbabayad through GCash.
So in short, totoo tayo, Art? We fall for it.
So I was being bashed na victim blaming daw yung ginagawa ko. Nung sinabi kong nagpapauto talaga tayo because we have been telling these people how to protect themselves, pero sinabing, bibigyan kita ng trabaho, 3,000 daily, magla-like ka lang. Naniwala sila at nagbayad through GCash ng 1,000 na magiging 1,500 in 3 days. Naniniwala sila sa mga ganun.
Maybe it's gullibility, or maybe it's just, maybe people are desperate for jobs, right? Times are hard, prices are high.
Well, possible, but the problem is the victims are professionals. The victims are those who have job already dito sa mga online scams na to. So it's one, the scammers know where to attack. First, they attack our curiosity.
Okay.
First, they attack our curiosity. Second, they attack our, greed. Third, they attack our fear.
Fear.
And third, they attack our fear. Pag sinabi ng mga scammers na your card will be deactivated if you want, click this link. So natatakot agad tayo, nagki-click tayo. And then greed because akala natin kikita tayo ng malaki, akala natin nakakatipid tayo ng malaki. When in fact, these people are scamming us through, ang pinakamalaking pinanggagalingan ng scam natin is Facebook. Social media, because Facebook allows scammers to place ads that target us.
Ano ba, Art, yung pinakauso? Oo, ano ba yung pinakauso sa Facebook? Pinakalaganap na modus?
Meron ako nakita sa Facebook. Speaking of ads, may kumakalat na isang brand na on sale daw yung bagong gadget. Tapos kailangan mo lang humabol. O yun, di ba? Sobrang dami, no? They use accounts of celebrities, influencers, acting like them. And people believe it.
May iba pa na parang influencers are in on it?
Hindi rin nila alam. They make fake profiles of the influencers.
Oh, the profiles themselves are fake.
So, may product launch ng isang brand. Yung mga tao na nandun, gagamitin nila yung photo para manloko to say that, you need to get in on this.
They're so creative.
We have like a day of sales.
Yes.
Yun.
Yes, they're very creative. And these cyber criminals are doing everything. They're using new technology to scam us. They're using new technology to get our credit card numbers. Ito, ang tatalino nila, and kahit sino pwedeng mabiktima nila. Kaya dapat natin talaga i-educate yung mga tao.
Okay, so Art, yung sinasabi mo, kasi may pagka-con artist di ba? Parang maluloko ka, kailangan mo magmadali, ganon. So parang voluntary mong naibibigay yung mga info or yung whatever. Pero uso pa rin ba ang credit card, debit card skimming, or parang ancient na ba yun, or vintage method na ba yun ng scam? Lagana pa rin ba?
Yung skimming dati, hindi na nangyayari. Yung kinokopya kinoclone yung card mo. Hindi na nangyayari. Pero scammers now have, gadgets to read your credit cards. So for example, this device is called a Flipper Zero. So this device can read your credit cards.
Please tell me hindi yan nabibili sa Lazada or Shopee.
Yun lang, fake yung binibenta sa Lazada, it won't work.
Okay.
Fake yung wag silang bibili ng mga nasa Lazada. So for example, this is my credit card, no? So I'll just tap. Ewan ko narinig yung sound. Ganun lang kabilis mag-tap ha. At nabasa na yung credit card number and expiration date.
Yung sa likod. Yung number sa likod.
No, CVV hindi niya nababasa. Pero pag binigay mo yung credit card mo sa waiter para i-tap doon sa machine nila, pwede niya na mabasa yung 3.
Oo nga.
Yun nga, alam mo, Art, nagtataka ako, bakit dito nag-aabot pa rin tayo ng card, no? Sa mga service people.
Yes.
In other countries, they don't even wanna touch your card. It's like, no. You put it here, put it here. Pansin mo?
Okay. But even then, you still need an OTP, right? Even though you
Not
have the
all the
card
time.
details.
Not all.
Yeah.
I don't need an OTP for...
Oo. So wala nang OTP. Meron mga shopping sites na hindi na humihingi ng OTP. Kailangan nila ang credit card number mo and expiration date. So diyan kumukuha ng credit card numbers ang mga scammers. Also, when a scammer calls you and say, ay, ma'am, dadagdagan ka namin ng credit limit. Ano yung credit card mo? Visa or MasterCard? Very innocent question and you will say MasterCard. Pero, sa mga bangko kasi, meron tinatawag na issuer IIN, issuer identification number.
Okay.
So if your card is issued by MasterCard, it starts with 5. If it's issued by Visa, it starts with 4. And then the following number, bank identification number, starts with 48809. Pag Visa, pag ibang credit card. So when a scammer calls you and say, ay ma'am, magkakaroon po kayo ng additional credit card credit limit. Ma'am, ito yung number. Kailangan lang malaman namin na ikaw yan. Please supply to us the last digits of your number.
Kasi actually ganun eh. Alam mo, pag minsan nag-online shopping ako, nyari pag tinype ko pa lang yung unang 2 letter, alam na niya lumalabas agad kung Visa o MasterCard eh. So obviously,
because it's an identifier.
Pero Art, so what you're saying is walang effect masyado dito sa mga bagong mga modus at scam, yung SIM registration law, di ba? Kasi minsan parang medyo voluntarily you're giving out the information eh. So parang more of nakukuhan artist tayo, smooth talk tayo.
Na-circumvent ng mga scammers yung SIM registration natin. Kasi before that, ang gusto talaga ng mga telco, we use the national ID para dun sa SIM registration. Pero of course, nagreklamo ang mga tao kasi marami daw madi-disenfranchise, pinayagan yung barangay clearance. So the latest raid ng CICC, NBI, and PNP, nakita nila itong mga pinapakita ngayon. So yung mga SIM card registered na, pre-registered. Meron isang tao, 600 yung naka-register na SIM card sa kanya. At ang ginamit, barangay clearance na ang dali-daling kunin.
I have to say,
so ito na circumvent nila.
Yeah. To this day, I'm still getting a lot of these scam texts. It hasn't stopped. That's right, even after the SIM registration.
So ang number one source ng scam, based on the study created by Global Anti-Scam Alliance, is from SMS. Ang pangalawa, galing sa Facebook.
Okay.
So hindi nag-work yung SIM card registration o hindi nag-work?
Hindi nag-work. So ito ngayon binabago ni committee ni Senator Poe. So they asked for recommendations. So isa sa mga recommendation namin, ilagay sa curriculum ang education for cybercrime, because this has become a scamdemic. I call it scamdemic. Ang dami-dami nabibiktima dito. So,
Art, since you're here na rin.
25%.
Since you're here na rin, question, ang daming tumatawag since SIM registration ended, no? Ang daming tumatawag sa WhatsApp ko na foreign numbers. Na-experience yun? Ano yun?
Oo, ako din ang daming tumatawag sa akin sa WhatsApp. Ang WhatsApp kasi, it's called over-the-top service. OTT service yan. Hindi na nagdadaan sa telco. So pag hindi na nagdaan sa telco, wala nang pakialam ang telco yan, dumiretso na siya kasi na-register na yung SIM card. So yun sa last raid na nakita namin, more than 30,000 pre-registered SIM cards na raid doon sa Pogo. At ang Pogo na yun, doon ang gagaling yung mga scams and mga spam messages natin. And sad to say, nung chinek namin yung mga websites kung saan papunta yung mga scam, these websites were created by Chinese-speaking programmers. Kasi nandun yung mga data nila nakalagay sa Chinese language, mainland Chinese language yung mga comments and details nila nakalagay. So obviously, gawa to ng mga Chinese users.
Did we just push them to another platform? Is that what happened here?
Ito yun, OTT, over the top. So umalis sila sa SMS. Nag-OTT sila. And now, sa latest survey, sa latest study, ang favorite mode of mode of delivery na scam nila, Facebook sa Pilipinas. That's more than 70% ng mga na-scam. They were scammed because of Facebook.
Meron naman tayong kasamahan sa work, ang ginawa naman, parang hinak yung account ng relative niya to ask for money from him. So parang ginawa, parang because of the details that the person knew about the relatives, ginamit yung familiar terms na very personal. Kaya
so he fell for it.
He fell for it, yes.
So yung babasahin yung mga message mo, no?
Oo, tandaan natin pag nabiktima tayo ng cybercrime, pag nakuha yung mga Facebook accounts natin, para tayo nabiktima ng COVID-19. Ang unang maapektuhan yung relatives natin, yung mga taong malalapit sa atin. Babasahin nila ang Facebook Messenger mo, titignan kung sino lagi mong kausap, yun yung uutangan, yun yung hihinga ng pera, yun yung hihinga ng pabor.
Art, really
We need
quickly.
to protect our social media.
Oo nga. Alam mo, very quickly lang, no, since nasa topic na rin tayo ng Facebook at SIM registration, nung original form nung SIM registration, kasama dapat yung Facebook Kasi in other countries, you need official ID, diba, to be able to sign into Facebook. Pero hinam down ito ni former President Duterte. Kaya ang pumasa na lang yung SIM card part, no, yung Facebook part hindi. Now that you're consulting with lawmakers, is this back on the table? Is someone suggesting na baka kailangan din natin linisin, no, yung Facebook policy natin dito sa Pilipinas?
Yung anonymity kasi very important yan sa social media because it could protect us, journalists, activists, and other people who are against the government or merong mga kritik ng government. So, we're suggesting na yung social media, leave it as anonymous. Pwede pa rin mag-anonymize. Pero, nire-register kasi yung, pag-register yung SIM card natin, hindi mo na kailangang i-register dun sa Facebook. So, kailangan lang ng government to act. For example, there are lots of scams on Facebook. Australia sued Facebook because of that one. Bakit hindi natin magawa sa Pilipinas? Because, lahat ng mga scam ngayon, lahat ng mga friends ko na-scam because of Facebook.
Okay. Wow. Something not very happy for Christmas, but at least thank you sa mga tips.
We know where to put up our guards, right?
Mag-ingat tayo. Mag-ingat po tayo
OTP,
sa mga
messenger
scams
apps,
ngayong
tsaka
Christmas.
Facebook.
Totoo, huwag magpapaloko. Ingat-ingat lang, no? At huwag magpapanik. Alright,
Huwag magpapaloko, magtanong sa mga nakakaalam at mag-report. 1326, i-report yung scam. Because if you will not report, the people that you love, the people closest to you will be the next scam victims.
Okay, 1326, save ko na yan sa aking phone. Maraming salamat sa oras mo ngayon, no? Holiday pa man din. Art Samaniego, tech enthusiast and co-lead convener of Scam Watch Pilipinas. Salamat.
Thank you.
Up next, it is the Fighting Maroons and the Green Archers facing off for the UAAP Season 86 Men's Basketball Finals. The details when the big story returns.
still watching Big Story here in One News.
Quick update in sports. After a weekend of college hoops action, the UAAP Season 86 Men's Basketball Finals is set. Now battling for the crown are the top two teams of the league this season. Unfortunately, that's not Ateneo, but the UP Fighting Maroons and the De La Salle Green Archers.
Yay!
La Salle is back in the finals after 6 years following their emphatic victory over the NU Bulldogs in the Final Four. UP, meanwhile, made a return trip to the finals for the third straight year after dispatching the defending champions, the Ateneo Blue Eagles. Now, this marks the first time these two teams will face off in the finals since La Salle joined the UAAP in 1986, incidentally the year UP won the championship. The best of three finals begins on Wednesday, November 29 at the Mall of Asia Arena. You can catch the games live on One Sports and One Sports Plus.
How did you like that verb? Dispatching.
gosh.
The defending
Pero
champion.
bilang ako ay
Dispatch.
taga-Katipunan, I will cheer for UP. Go beat
Okay,
the La Salle.
bago mag-away tong dalawang to, Uy, mukha kalimutan, naka-green ka tonight. Nagkamali. Alright, before we go, kung may plano kayong lumipad ngayong Wednesday, November 29, the NAIA Terminal 3 will be going through some maintenance work. Expect a 3-hour power interruption from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. at the Terminal 3 on November 29. Airport authorities said this is part of electrical maintenance activities in the terminal. Now, despite the works, the MIAA said that critical operations like security scanners, check-in counters, and immigration booths will remain fully operational. Gensets or generators will also be used to ensure uninterrupted flight operations.
Just as we're heading into peak travel season pa naman.
Hey, you know what? I'm just glad they're still doing the electricity maintenance work that they have promised us.
You know, I came from a CDO, so I got on my flight.
Did you pass Terminal 3?
I went on the first flight, 4 a.m., and there were long lines.
Wow! At 4 a.m.?
Sa backdrop. Sa backdrop pa, when you've already checked in. So you better head on early to the airport if you do have a trip.
It's
with
odd
or
because
without
sometimes
maintenance
the Bureau of Immigration does publish pictures and sometimes it's like, wala, there's no lines.
Well, she just took a
You breeze
domestic
right through.
flight.
Sa backdrop lang. Sa backdrop pa
Check-in
lang.
counter pa
Doon
lang.
pa lang. Sobrang haba na.
Alright, so again, as usual, better early than sorry and paying rebooking fees. That's it for the show tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.